Well, let's see if anybody shows up. I don't know. I might just do this stream live, whatever the hell you call it, with or without people. But no, we'll see what happens. I don't think anybody's going to show up. I always seem to do these things at a really late time because I really don't care. I mean, the whole point is just to get the information out there so it's available to other people. And if people don't want to watch the replays for a very quick um, bunch of information, that's their business. So I'm fine with that too. At least somebody tried. So, but yeah, like I said, it depends on the people here or not. I have had some videos downloading and this and that that I was going to use for this, but apparently they were not ready to go just yet. So I wasn't able to actually figure out how to do all that. I got two big old cases that I'm working on at the moment in time that I'm going to use the whole stuff that I've learned thing. Basically, it's going to be the case basically involving my cousin, the Hog Trail murders slash the Fort Myers 8 serial killer Daniel Owen Conahan. This one I'm definitely going to use the new stuff with because I'm going to try to make these videos a lot better. I think it'll be like a documentary rather than a live, but we'll see. And the other one being, well, honestly, I'd probably end up doing the same for Delphi at some point, but there's still too much unknown information there. But the other case I'm thinking about, well, yeah, I'm definitely doing is Flora. Basically, I'm just going through all the known information with some partners and whatnot. Some really awesome partners, actually. I'll tell you about them later. But probably some of the most knowledgeable people on the internet about the case whatsoever. So they've been awesome, and they provided me with so much that we're literally going piece by piece, breaking down the entire case, everything that is known, and it's pretty close. I mean, first I'm going to do something like a documentary, I guess, that basically has a rundown of every single theory, suspect, everything. And mind you, there's a lot of persons of interest in that case. A lot. I had no. I mean, I had an idea, but honestly, I've never deep dived into Flora itself. But now that I'm starting to, oh boy, talk about a train wreck. And can somebody please explain to me why this tiny wood house they caught on fire has so many bad fucking people around it? Oh lord. And I live in the ghetto, and I'm over here going, holy shit, there's a lot of bad people around this place. A lot of people you're going to be like, hey, ain't that? Yes, it is. Forget you saw that name. We'll get back to it. Holy crap. Uh, I remember I've heard many times people say things like, there's no connection between Delphi and Flora. I'm sorry. You kind of are right, but no. At the same time, you're not. I mean, it's best to be honest with people as far as I'm concerned, because anybody with the common sense is going to go in there and do a bit of research and go, wait a minute, what about this? Or what about that? And that's just how it is. It's best to deal with it and say, hey, these people somewhat intersect from this case to this case. And it's best we just leave it at that until we have evidence that says otherwise. You, know, you shouldn't try to fool people because then it looks like you're lying when you get caught. Just saying. I'm not calling anybody out or anything like that. I'm just saying you should just be honest with people and stuff. Because, yeah, it wasn't that hard to find out. Within the first day or so of me digging into that crap, I already found two connections between the two cases. And I'm like, awkward. But you get what I'm saying. Um, I am also talking to a couple of friends of mine. Well, I'd love to have them on. Actually, I'd love to have a few more who I'm still talking or trying to talk to at least. But maybe a panel or something like that. But point is, I don't know if that's going to be more of a. I want to break it into episodes or not. You know, I could probably do it on the theories and the suspects, persons of interest, whatever you want to call them. I could probably do that within one episode or two, but then I would like to have uh, a panel for the second one. Because if you have all the people conversating and everything else in the first one, it's going to take forever to get through all the information that's apparently, obviously important to what happened in the case. So you lay everything out, you do the deep dive, you tell all the known information, and then you do the episode after, probably the next day or something like that, of everybody talking about it, how they feel, what their opinions are, everything else. And um, yeah, I'd like to believe I pick pretty good panels or whatever. Everybody that's there either has a large connection to this case or they just have experience and wisdom that make them important to this conversation. But that should be soon too because I have to take a. Well, I'm not even going to talk about that right now. But yeah, hopefully that all works out. I know I know at least two of them are probably going to be willing to come up. And I think an angry one will at least show up in the chat and yell at me soon. So that's fine. Okay, back to what this thing was about in the first place. Now that I've gotten comfortable and I have no problem in speaking. Um, Actually, this apparently happened months ago, but I didn't notice because my ass was so wrapped up in Delphi as usual. Um, there was an update, and I will break these cases down also some other time very soon, hopefully, so you get a better understanding what actually occurred in these other cases because these are Florida cases. So yeah, I know them pretty damn well already, but y'all probably don't, or honestly, you probably never even heard of them, except for probably Ruckus or somebody. But yeah, okay. I think it was 5 to 7 murders that happened at a mall. That's about an hour and a half or so away from my house. In Boca Raton, Florida. They basically are called the Boca Raton murders. And they all happened at this mall. This guy would keep showing up out of nowhere, kidnapping parents and their children, making them wear blacked out goggles. It was really weird. Um, a couple of them got away. Well, basically, he chose not to kill them. I guess because they complied or whatever, is what they think. Um, at first, they thought the first one was a hit. They're still not sure. That still might not even be connected. We don't know. The next two was a mother and her son. But in that same time frame, a mother and her son, or a mother and her daughter, was able to get away without being murdered. Then, he took them, I guess, to the bank. They pulled out some money. He did the goggle thing. They lived all as well. He tied them up and all kinds of other stuff, or used twist ties. Yeah, like I said, I'm going to do a much better breakdown very soon. Then the next two were murdered. Um, Nobody knows what changed between A and B to cause that problem to happen. Whether she didn't comply, whether she didn't do what she was told, I don't think anybody knows. We're just going by the information that we have. And then there was another set of, I think it might have been a father and a daughter or something like that. But basically, there's at least 5 to 7 murders. The one single one, 2 doubles at least, maybe a third set of doubles, and then the 2 victims that ended up getting away. And they had a sketch and all this other stuff of the perpetrator, and this was between 1996, I think, and 19 or like year 2000 around that, or 98 even, like 94 to 98 or some crap. It was in the mid to late 90s, and then everything just went cold. No more murders happened. Nothing, nada. Um, that was apparently until and it's a weird ass story too, honestly. And I'm still fleshing it out to actually figure it all out. Like I said, this is more of just a quick update. And I thought it was pretty interesting, so I was like, fuck it, I'll tell everybody. Oddly enough, a journalist in Sweden was reached out to. I know that. Sweden, right? Crazy. Apparently, a serial killer there, yes, you heard, a serial killer in Sweden named Peter Mongs told him and started corresponding with this journalist or whatever, and at some point started talking about at least one double murder that he has committed in Florida, southern Florida to be exact. And the details that he has given thus far, but he does seem to start. He started to shut up now, so now we're not getting any more info out of him. But the double homicide does seem to match up at least to one of the double murders from the Boca Raton Mall. Now, um, I don't know if Sweden would be willing to extradite this man. You got to remember, this guy killed at least two children, very young children. I think between the ages of like 4 to 10. So he killed two kids, two good parents as well. Actually, three good parents if you count the initial one, if he did it. But it's obvious that whoever committed the one double homicide committed the other double homicide. The cops have no doubt in this. And that person also is the same person that let the other two that could have been murdered just the same go. The goggles matched up. I mean, like I said, he used blacked out goggles, put them on the victims. And the one lady, before the next set died, came in there. She explained everything to the police, told them about the goggles, turned over the goggles and everything to them. Then, when the two bodies are found of the kid and her mom, they're wearing the same kind of goggles. You get what I'm saying? It's painfully obvious that the same perpetrator committed all three crimes in that instance. There is still talk that the initial first murder might have been a hit, but the ballistics doesn't seem to check out. From what I know, there's no dark goggles in that one. There seems to be a bit of a struggle. It doesn't seem to match the initial thing. But this was the first murder, so we don't know. When I do the more deep dive on this case, like I said, I've already got videos downloading for it. They have a documentary that came out in, I believe, 2024 that explained all this that I did not find until recently because it's been, oddly enough, it went under my radar. And if you want to look it up and watch it yourself, it's actually called Under the Radar because apparently nobody's paying attention to this. So I figured, hey, nobody watches me anyways, so I'll just tell everybody about it and see what happens. Also, this actually happened a couple of years ago, but honestly, I don't get really many people asking too much about Florida cases. I mean, sure, y'all might ask about like what happened to my cousin and all kinds of other stuff, and that's fine and dandy. But yeah, it's like Florida people don't care, and it's like true crime people. They kind of like the high profile cases, not too much cold cases or the unsolved cases or anything like that. And whatever's in the news, they like to. I think the only person I've actually heard talking about my cousin's case that wasn't either pestered by me. Yeah, I know the True Crime Garage has done something unsolved. No More has done an episode on my cousin's cases and another case that I gave him as well. And yeah, I'm trying to get Inquisitor at the moment to do like a documentary thing on my cousin's case too. I'm hoping he does it, but I think he will because he's awesome. So yeah, but the other case that I was talking about was the flat tire murders, and this update was a bit ago. Honestly, it's not that great of an update, but at least it's something. I think it was a year ago as well, maybe a year and a half. Um, we had identified the killer in at least one to possibly two of the victims of the flat tire murders, which basically the guy would set up for these people tires to go flat and then offer and pull up as a ruse to act like he's going to help them. But in the process, he would murder the victims. Usually, I think they were pretty women and stuff like that were by themselves. And that was just kind of like some Ted Bundy shit. You know what I mean? And it does seem like that, honestly. But I'm not sure about the whole necrophilia and stuff and all that. But yeah, but the basics of what Bundy did seemed about the same as this guy. And they, even though the guy is dead, honestly, I need to look up his name and do a breakdown of that case as well. I got a lot of Florida cases I have to break down because if I don't keep record and keep doing these to make sure everybody knows this information, it's kind of hard to find it if you're not actually looking for it. The hell was I don't care. Time shit. I did get some information recently that does concern the hog trail murders and the Fort Myers 8. I'm gonna kind of basically give it now, and then spread it a lot more out when I do the whole episode on that case because there's like 30 murders there almost or more, and well, honestly, basically a witness. So even though I will never get to go to trial and not ever get to tell what I already know happened, it is what it is. But apparently they are finally, after this was 1996, 4 plus 20, it's been almost 30 years now that we've waited for them to do something about Daniel Conahan. And at this point in my family, yeah, it's almost like they forgot all this. I mean, honestly, they didn't really care in the first place. It didn't seem like a big deal. They just thought he took off, and I just knew something wasn't right because the guy fucking really creeped me the hell out. Dude, seriously, just look him up sometime or the case up, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. Or just wait until I make the video because it won't be long. But there's something about that dude that didn't sit right. And I used to get into fights a lot, so it's not. But back when I was like 15 years old, it wasn't commonplace for me to just walk around threatening people and all this other stuff. I didn't have to do something like that because I was already 6 foot tall by then. You know what I'm saying? And like 300, almost 400 pounds probably. So it's a rare occasion where I need to turn around and actually fucking threaten somebody. So, as I was saying, that day, my cousin John was at the store sitting outside because it's a commonplace. I guess that's supposed to happen in every state, but it's very commonplace here that the homeless or the transients or whatever, the less likable people, or AKA the high risk people, would sit outside very busy stores, specific ones, depending on what area you're in, until people would pull up basically and say, "Hey, I need somebody to do this job," and then they would just negotiate a price, an agreement would be made, and then this person would hop in the vehicle and come back later on with money after finishing the job. I'm sure everybody's seen it happen at Home Depot and all kinds of stuff. So really shouldn't even have to explain. And I was going to the store to buy some cigarettes. Yes, I know I was 15, but yeah, I always looked a hell of a lot older than that. And this was the ghetto. Come on, everybody knows about that ghetto store. Come on, jeez. So as I'm going to the store, I see the weird blue station wagon, like sky blue, kind of, maybe a little tiny bit darker than sky blue, sitting out there, and this creepy ass old dude. And he don't age much, man. He looks damn near the same as when I saw him in '96. It's creepy. He had on some Jeffrey Dahmer fucking eyeglasses. His talk was just easy. Trust me, you get shivers from it. And as I was walking up to the entrance to the store to get some cigarettes, I saw John was talking to him, and I was like, "Yo, what's up, dog?" And John just told, "Hey, I'm getting ready to do a job, blah blah blah." And the dude started asking me some really creepy ass questions about would I like to make some money. and everything else, that I'm a very handsome boy and blah 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 blah. It just back then I didn't have much of a filter. Still kind of don't really have a filter, but it just creeped me the fuck out. Like I said, gave me goosebumps. I was like, something about it. Once you understand and hear what exactly I was asked, and what John had been asked, and what all the other victims have been asked, I think you'll get a much better idea of what I'm talking about. Because if somebody ever asked you that question, I kind of think that if you're a man and not weak or gonna be a man, I was like 14, almost 15, or 15, I'm not sure. But my first thought, it came down to fight, flight, or freeze. And I don't like to fight. I will fight. I'm fucking good at it. But I don't like to because I might lose control over myself and might seriously hurt somebody. So it's always been the first effort to put out as menacing of an aura, I guess, as it possibly like to intimidate the fuck out of them so badly that they think twice about ever fucking saying another word to me again. Basically. And I learned how to do that with words. I learned how to do that in person. No, hell, if I got to slap you a couple of times in the face to make you shut the fuck up, it is what it is. And he activated that whole, and he wasn't even being mean or anything. He was polite. He was offering $300 or something. Yeah, at least $200 to $300, and it just didn't sit right with me. So, like I said, this is not a commonplace thing. But I turned around as I was walking in the store, and I didn't even stop. But I said, I yelled at the dude. I practically screamed at him, which is why I ended up getting interrogated later on by the police because they thought I was screaming at my cousin. I know, it's ironic. But basically, yeah, he gave me such a bad feeling. And I've only had that kind of feeling happen so many times. I've had tons of bad feelings, but never bad. Like, hey, dumbass, if you go anywhere near this situation, there's a good chance you might not walk out of it. I felt like his words and his aura, I don't fucking know, something about him just wasn't right. It didn't sit well with me. And yeah, you talking to him, you almost felt like your life could end, like you're being threatened. And my response to it was to curse him out, to scream at him, and to tell him he needed to fuck off before I beat his ass and I kill him. That's exactly what I did. And that screaming and all that other stuff, plus being the fact that I was the last person to see John alive that wasn't the killer, got me into some shit because then I was questioned by the main, who's that? Main case? No, it's not main case squad. I know they have a word for the phrase. Shit, what's it called? Basically, it's the people that cover the high profile homicides, or just any homicides, period, depending on the county. Um, but any high profile cases in this county is covered by a specific group of cops. They're apparently the best of the best. And my parents thought it was a good idea when the cops came to our house and said, "Hey, they didn't want to talk to me. They didn't ask me shit at the house. I was there. They said we would like you to come down to the police station, the sheriff's department, and answer some questions for us." Now, of course, I had already known at this point that my cousin had been missing for damn near a month, and I was more glad than anything that they were actually doing something about it in the first place. Because um, I was the one that pushed for my parents and all them to make a missing persons report on him. And I guess in that meantime, somebody finally got a hold of the store with the information that I gave, and the major case. Okay, that's what it's called, major case squad. But yeah, they wanted to talk to me because basically, at first, it seemed like I was the witness. They wanted to hear what I had to say, and then whatever it was that I said, they didn't like the way it sounded because Well, let me provide a very important part of this. Upon taking their 14-year-old son down to the sheriff's department in regards to a possible missing person slash homicide victim, we now know, their best idea was like, sure, no, you can talk to our son without us. I'm just going to go and sit out here and you guys can go take him in there. With these two very smart adult males, which people complain about what the crap happened to Richard Allen. Oh boy. I'm sorry, if you take those same cops that I had to talk to, and like I said, when I make the episode, I'll actually name them and everything else because they're, oddly enough, they're still friends of mine. Kind of weird. They're both retired at this point, but they're still working the case. Um, they don't like the fact that all these murders have gone unsolved, but one too. But yeah, like I said, that's more for that episode. Um, and I take away this whole read technique thing, or what you can kind of call it a reconditioned good cop, bad cop kind of thing, using loved ones against you kind of thing, and all this other crap. Yeah, I've been through it quite well, and the people that I had to go through it with was a lot better at it. They stayed calm. They kept their composure. They more or less combined multiple methods too. Um, they would ask multiple questions one after another without giving you a chance to answer in the meantime, like between. And they would ask you like three, four, five questions at a time, and then just wait for the answer. And it's obvious that, like, if you answer question A with the answer for question C, if you get anything mixed up, if you answer two before one, and they take you as answering one before two, and it's like I said, it's all there to confuse you to get you to fuck up. And the fact that my story didn't change, that I was able to catch them every single time they were trying to trick me, even as a kid. So honestly, I don't want to hear anybody fucking saying shit about Richard Allen because I went through a hell of a lot worse. And the first interrogation lasted about 8 hours. I then had to come back the next day for another 4 hours, which thankfully by the time that started, I was already no longer a suspect. I was more of the witness. And then I was brought back in 2007 when the victims were found because I had already been contacted in 2007 in March because they found 8 bodies. Yes, 8. All within the size of a football field next to each other. All skeletonized, no clothes, no items, no weapons, nothing. Just skeletons all over the place. We had to go in and we had to give DNA so they could check it against the UV8 because my cousin had been missing since 1996, obviously. And when they checked it, John Blevins ended up the first one identified because, you know, I kept up on it. I kept fighting for it and everything else. I kept bugging him to figure out where I knew if he was alive, he would have been in contact. He was like my best friend. So the fact that he didn't, he already pissed me off. I'm gonna kick his ass when I go up to heaven or whatever the hell I'm going. I don't know, but I'm gonna beat his ass for not listening to me in the first place because I told him to stop talking to that creepy motherfucker because he wasn't the smartest. And I hate saying that, but I loved him dearly, and that's not sufficient reason for him to, just because he was naive enough to get into the idiot's car, don't mean shit. I've talked to Conahan since then on the phone. I've written letters and had them come back to me from Conahan. And, well, let's just say he pretends he doesn't know who the hell I am. He acts like he never was there that day. He keeps claiming himself to be innocent of even the one murder, let alone the other. And I'm not even joking. There's 2 victims that got away in this case, and at least 25 or more, at least 25 victims that did not get away. Basically, they found the victim too soon, and if they hadn't have done that, see, they were finding victims months after the crime, so they were already skeletons and shit by then. And you got to remember, as I said in the Fort Myers 8 case with my cousin, these other victims were in an area of about 5 counties, and they had no evidentiary items. They were all skeletons. Um, they were all transients or druggies and stuff like that. Low risk fucking victims. Just like when, like the Green River Killer started detecting sex workers. This is the kind of people you aim for because if they go missing, usually people don't give a shit. But apparently, in this one case, somebody did give a shit because you know I waited 48 hours and I made sure my mom reported him missing, and we kept fighting, and I kept pestering, and I kept pestering, and then when they finally did find the bodies, um, for a couple of years, I honestly did not know what to do. I just kept in contact with the police, and that's how I still know the guys from Major Case Squad and all that. And they're good dudes and all that. I don't hold it against them for treating me the way they did. I wish my parents were smart enough to figure out that was a bad idea. Because if I was an idiot or slow or anything like that, God knows what could have happened. But yeah, if you ever get in a situation like that and they're asking you multiple questions and trying to be your buddy, and they're not your buddy, this other crap, and they're trying to use your fucking parents and shit and all that against you, and use the actual victim himself against you, as in they, with their words. My best option is just to keep being honest. If you know for yourself what you've done, don't try to help them in any way. Honestly, no. Your best advice is not to talk to the police. They are not your friend. You ask for a lawyer and you shut the fuck up. But if you're gonna be stupid, like I was stupid because I didn't know shit back then, and I did talk to them, only stick to what you know as the truth that can be proven. The story I kept giving them never changed, all the way from 1996 to 2007. And it was always the fucking same. And the second they backed off of me or whatever as a suspect because everything that I said in my story was verified by the surveillance camera at the store. Um, in 2007, they kind of gave me a few questions that almost seemed like I was going to be suspected again, but they made it apparently clear out of that. I was worried about that, but they just turned around and they were like, "No, we know who did this. We just either can't get state to file charges because the trial's going to be too expensive. Because, like I said, they had a witness. I saw the car. I saw what year the car was. I saw what color the car was, and it matched the previous known conviction. It's the same car that Conahan was seen in. I mean, the dude was like 6 feet from me. And as I said a million times already, I got a photographic memory. And it's not hard to describe. Like, yeah, the dude's about 6 foot, about 6'1", probably about 260, 300 pounds. Wears glasses that look like fucking Jeffrey Dahmer's or the Zodiacs. Looks like he's 70 already, but he's definitely not 70 because you can tell by the way he moves around that he's pretty agile. So he can't be 70. And yeah, this is a bunch of weird cases. And they got one conviction. They don't want to have any more trials because trials are expensive. But then again, their biggest piece of evidence on any other of these victims is my testimony and the testimony of a pedophile and of another criminal that couldn't be killed because Conahan preferred to strangle his victims by hand. And I guess this dude had a really muscly neck, and it just was not working. He tried to kill him for like an hour and a half, and then gave up. And I've actually the video I'm waiting on right now is the interviews and stuff with people like him, and even the pedophile, which I know you're not going to like, but trust me. And it's probably the main reason why, because your main eyewitnesses in this case against Conahan are a notorious criminal, another notorious criminal who's also a pedophile, which the jury's not going to sit there and you know feel happy about, and then you have a kid who doesn't have a criminal record, but still he's a fucking kid, you know. And so I kind of get that from the cops and all that, but yeah, I don't know, it just bothers me. I'd rather them just they basically go on the news and everything else once in a while to just say, hey, we know who did this. All these murders were committed by that one person. And Conahan always just goes, nope, nope, I didn't do it. He tells me the same. And the last time I talked to Conahan, I was not very nice at all because my response to him is, look, motherfucker, you can stop with your bullshit. And this was said on the phone. So I know there's a recording of it somewhere. I'd like to get it. And I'm like, you can tell me all the fuck you want that you didn't do this and you didn't do that. I'm like, I was the one there. I saw you. You fucking tried to solicit me at the same time. I'm like, instead you got my little fucking dumb cousin to get in the fucking vehicle with you, and he never got to come home. I almost wish I had gotten in the car because it would have at least been a fair fight, because I was over 6 feet tall at that point in time, and he's over, at least 6 feet tall. Weight wise, I was bigger in the hole, probably stronger in the hole. I don't know. I'd probably be dead, but at least it'd been somebody. John was fucking. He's like 5'9", a buck 30, dude, little tiny guy. And it's just like that's how all these victims were. The ones that got away were the ones that actually had some size to them, and the ones that didn't get away were the ones that were all around that size, between the heights of about 5'4" to about 5'10". Yeah. And for the longest time, all they could do is make these weird sculptures and shit to show what the victims might look like because they didn't have genetic genealogy or anything like that. But there is all kinds of updates since then because at least now of the Fort Myers 8, half of them have been identified as one was John. And like I said, I know the names already of the other three. And then and not just the Fort Myers 8, but most of the other victims have now been identified too. Well, actually, that's not true. I'd say about half in both situations. Because with the Fort Myers 8, you got 8. And as I said, you have 25. One of them was identified at the time because he was very fresh. He'd only been dead a couple of days. He still had flesh. You could see what he looked like. You could see how he died. You could see what wounds were caused to him. You know, so that helped them out, and that's why they were able to give a conviction in that case. Oddly enough, a paint flake that had multiple colors of car paint mixed in with it was found in his pubic hair, and it came up to a match of not only the top paint that was used in painting Cunahan's parents' car that we asked blue Ford station wagon. I can't forget it. And every color underneath that ugly blue was another color that matched up to this flake. It was like almost better than a damn ballistic or fingerprint or anything like that. Like they 100% tied that car. Each time somebody makes their own choice, or a dealer goes, "Hey, I don't like the color of this car. We're going to paint it this color. It'll sell better." Every single time you do that, you get a layer added on that nobody else. That might have never happened anywhere else in the whole world. So when you get this car, and then you can find, I think it was, they said about 6 to 8 different layers of paint on top of each other in this car, and each one, 100%, was matched up perfect. And honestly, I'd love to see that. I'm trying to do a Freedom of Information Act because Florida's really good about that shit. To get I mean, I know the gist of the information and stuff because I was at the trial and back for Conahan in '96, and I'd just like to break down the whole case itself and tell you everything they got because I know the information, but it's better to show the information if I can. But I don't know. I think the case is at a true crime level. I think it's pretty fucking interesting. But as I said, people don't tend to like cold cases, and people aren't really big on Florida cases either. But it is what it is. They're unsolved cases. It has nothing to do with me in the end, but people should know about it. There's people around the United States that are missing loved ones, and they have no idea what happened to them, and think that they still might be alive, but they were found out in those wooded areas. Um, with all kinds of messed up things done. And like I said, I don't think we're getting into that tonight, but very soon. And oddly enough, that's not the only serial killer that I know of, at least. Because I met a second one because he worked at Walmart. Went to school with my stepdad. But yeah, that's just another story I get to tell, apparently. So, but this one had a severe mental problem, schizophrenia, liked to stop taking his medication, and upon doing so, would start hearing the voices and seeing the shit, and then he ended up killing at least 4 to 5 people once he had gone nuts like that. So I guess it's kind of an interesting story. I'll probably just tack it on with the Fort Myers area. Wow, somebody showed up. Yeah. I'm not sure if you can hear me or not, Monster, but apparently there is a, a Swedish serial killer. Yeah, I know that sounds crazy, but you're just gonna have to believe me. That has told a journalist about how he committed a double homicide in southern Florida, and so far the information he has given has seemed to check out. And they did a little documentary and stuff that I just found the other night because I was always so wrapped up in Delphi. But upon doing so, I watched a documentary. It's called Under the Radar, and I'm not sure. It took me a while to find an English copy, but it shouldn't be that hard for you. But once you find it, it's pretty interesting. But the main fact is, if we already know, and the cops already know, that each of the double homicides had to be committed by the same person, and also the double could-be homicide that didn't happen also has too many connections to the other 4, you know? So it's just really freaking obvious that if he killed at least 2 of them, the parent and the child, then it's most likely that he killed the others as well. I'm not sure about the first one still because I think they still think that might have been a hit. Hey, no, it's all good. I do these things at weird times, and I always end up flaking off or being late or something like that. And just like I got to start making these at some point. But his name is Peter Mongs. Peter isn't Peter, but Mangs Mongs. He's locked up in Sweden. And honestly, if you were to take him and put that goofy ass hat on him and those stupid ass sunglasses, I see it. I always thought that the sketch made the guy look like a Latino or Cuban or something, But now that I've seen this guy in court and what he looks like and all that, he matches the size. His face looks pretty much the same, and it's just crazy because I don't even think that was the first time that a serial killer was suspected from a different country. I think there was like a German or a Holland serial killer that was also suspected in that same case. But he was just talked about, and it was because I guess he knew one of the victims, maybe the first one or something like that. I got to remember; it's been a long time. But it was just the other day when I read an article in the Boca Raton News that spoke of one piece of the puzzle missing or this and that. So I was like, oh crap. Like they had to find something. So I started digging and that's when I find a story from another part of Florida that starts telling me about the Swedish journalist and all that other crap. So then I go and find the documentary. It took a little bit. It's not very popular, and not many people know about it. But honestly, that's how this whole case is. And there's an update also in the flat tire murders, also out of Florida. At least one of the murders they believe now to have been committed by, I don't remember his name. That's the problem. This was like a year and a half ago. But he's dead now. But they believe that they can connect the murder of at least one of the victims, maybe 2, to a specific individual who's now passed away, and they've identified him. Like I said, I had video downloading, but I didn't have it ready. But I didn't want to flake off and just not do this again. So I was like, hell, I'll just do a deep dive on it later on and show all the information. And I also have Under the Radar and everything else downloading right now too. But yeah, that's at least two sets of serial murders out of Florida. And then if you count in the one that I'm involved in, aka the Hog Trail murders, hell, that case is basically solved. I mean, I don't like that all these murders are sitting there with no conviction or anything attached to them. I mean, you're talking about like 25 murders with no, all unsolved. I don't like it. I think it's bullshit, but it is what it is. Especially, I mean, think to yourself if you had been there and met and talked to a freaking serial killer, you may have not known it at the time, but you kind of take offense to it later on when the cops basically tell you that it's going to cost too much money and they might not get a conviction because you're the only witness that anybody will like. It's not fun. Not fun at all. And like I said, the other serial killer I met went to school with my stepdad. He worked at Walmart, killed 4 or 5 people. His parents, his best friend, and they believe a homeless guy behind Walmart that was found on a day that he called off. But he was just mental, didn't take his medication, and started hearing voices. So, yeah, it's just a lot of cases when it comes out of Indiana or Wisconsin or places like that, you get a lot of exposure on these cases, it seems, oddly enough. And you would think that people would be like, if I go through all the cases that just happened in my general area of like 3 counties, you would be shocked because most of these have been all over court TV and everything else. And nobody realizes it's all this one general little tiny area. And I'm talking about Samuel Little, 2 victims in this area. Wade Wilson, the Deadpool killer, also committed his murders in the exact county that I'm in. If you've ever heard of the Lords of Chaos that killed the teacher and then tried to kill his gang members from prison using a journalist, which I used to beat that guy up. That's how crazy it is. um, so yeah, from my county, just the same. The Hog Trail murders happened in 5 different counties. Fort Myers 8, where 8 victims were found that are still unsolved to this day, which one of them was my cousin. Uh, I'm in Fort Myers, so that's where it comes from. Um, at least half the Hog Trail murders were also people from my county or found in my county. Yeah, there's always like Popeye's victims, Paul Klein, were from my county. And that's just the high profile one. Oh, Jeffrey Zeiler committed a double homicide out of Cape Coral of an 11-year-old girl named Lisa Song and her babysitter who was 22. He was just, and that was back in 1990. He was just convicted right before Wade Wilson, or no, right after or right before Wade Wilson was convicted. He was convicted, and he's got videos all over YouTube. It's pretty messed up. I mean, you should look him up one day because I almost made the jury in that case, but apparently they aren't too happy about having people on the jury that have had family members or loved ones been murdered. So yeah, I wasn't able to do it because of that. But yeah, I'm basically the weirdo when it comes to Florida cases. But yeah, anything you want to know about Florida cases, trust me, I'm the person. Honestly, I know about the Curtis Huff case. I actually was there. Me and Ruckus went and knocked on his door like assholes. You ever walked up? So I actually know the 3 serial killers I met, technically. Yeah, 3. And the third one I actually knew was a serial killer when we walked up to his door. Because me, Ruckus Rocks, and Mr. Steve, I think, this was a few years ago. Um, Basically, we were all in Florida. Steve was already there for that. He hadn't moved there yet, though. Um, Ruckus called me on the phone because he knew me by that point because we were in the same group. He was like, "Ciao, boy, what you up to?" I'm like, "Nothing." I'm like, "What do you want, Ruckus?" You want to come and knock on our serial killer's door with me? Hmm, interesting. Let's do this. And she sent me the police file. Okay, somebody sent me the police file. I'd like to keep that person's name under wraps, so let's just pretend I didn't say that. I've never actually had an open case where I had all the information, I knew all the evidence and all this other crap, as well as the Curtis Huff case. I think it was like 4 to 6 victims, all female, monetary value kind of thing. I knew the case quite a bit before they got me involved, but I didn't realize it until I saw the one red car that was on the news. Once I saw that, I was like, "Holy crap!" Yeah, not the worst person in the world, I guess. But if you didn't know it, you wouldn't suspect them of doing that. But I think a lot of people were that way, like Richard Allen and everybody else. Unless you know about it, you're not going to think that they're capable of something like that. But a long time ago, because of my own experiences, you learn that just about everyone's capable of stuff like that. And if you stop and think that nobody, oh, they couldn't have done this, they couldn't have done that, you're screwing up already because you're never going to get a good investigation done until you suspect everybody and eliminate people as you go, or at least try to. I'm trying to think of any other ones. Like I said, Samuel Little had over 90 confirmed victims throughout the United States. He had 2 in this county as well. But yeah, there's a whole bunch of cases I have to go through, flesh out, and make episodes for, including Jeffrey Zeiler, Wade Wilson. I think I did a bunch of stuff on Wade Wilson with like the Hate Create and other people. And I had some on my other channel, but I deleted that whole channel. Uh, but yeah, it's like the way that people talk about Delphi is cursed. In reality, I think my area is also kind of cursed because even though there's a massive, like when I was born in 1981, this place was probably this whole county was about the size of Carroll County, I would say. Maybe a couple thousand more or something like that, but it's about the same size as Carroll County, and in what Delphi and Florida and all that is. And real small town, country like, not well, small town, small county. And in that time, as I grew up, it's like the area itself grew up. The cities filled out that were around us, and our city basically became the prime location and all this other crap of the whole county. And we went from about 30 to 40,000 people in 1981 to now, just in Fort Myers alone, which is only one city in the county, there's about 10 million. And Cape Coral, which back then probably had less than 1,000, now has about 10 million as well. Lehigh's probably got 8 million. Port Charlotte, oh Lord. Yeah, it's a big ass county. We always had plenty of land, but it didn't really fill out until as I basically grew up. And in that time, we've had cops that were serial killers. A few of them, actually. My total is in the 3 counties around me that I can name at least 7 police officers or sheriff's deputies that were murderers to serial murderers, or at least alleged serial murders. There's James Duckett, who killed Teresa Maccabee and is suspected in the Jennifer Weldon case. And if you're going to connect those two, then, oh, honestly. And that dude, don't let him fool you, man. If you watch an interview, you'll think he's innocent. When you look at the evidence, you're like, oh, shit. So it's like one of those crazy cases. And believe it or not, if you don't remember, how long ago? It's like 10 or 15 years ago. Nancy Grace had this Asian lady on there that everybody basically thought that she had murdered her son, and that's exactly what everybody thinks to this day. But rather than handle that fragile psycho chick just a decent way, she went off on her so badly that the lady killed herself, and now we'll never know what happened to her son. And the surviving family sued the hell out of Nancy Grace, and apparently they got a very large settlement, and she almost got fired for it. And Oddly enough, the husband of the Asian lady whose son was probably murdered, or is still missing at least, um, is the son of James Duckett, the cop that killed at least two little girls right here in Florida. So, and then we had who was the creepy one? Shit, out of Port St. Lucie, Gerard John Schaefer. He claimed they think he killed up to at least 54 young girls, teen and up, as a deputy, and he claims to have eaten some and everything else. Well, he claimed. Of course, he's now been killed. He got stabbed to death in prison. Couldn't happen to a better person, mind you, I will say. But I forget the name and what they were called, but there was a team of serial killers um, from near here. One of the two was like one of those not replacement police officers, but temporary, like not full fledged, but they still do the job, from time to time or whatever. Kind of like Steven Seagal in that stupid show that he has. Basically, he had one of those serial killers in the team had that job. I think his name was Gore, something Gore, Ware or Gore. It was his last name, but I honestly should remember it, but it is kind of weird. Out of Naples, we have a case that I'm still trying to get the video that I can because I really want to give it a good breakdown. I got Unsolved No More to do an episode on it, and like the Hog Trail Murders, I got True Crime Garage to do an episode on that. But I got Unsolved No More to do an episode of his YouTube when I gave him these cases. Basically, Naples, which is still in our county, half in, half out. The same deputy was seen with two victims that had a lot of things in common with each other, as in being either illegal immigrants or minority. And they were both arrested, both put in the back of a cop car, and both supposedly being taken to the police station, but they never made it there. They were never seen again. And this was like 20 something years ago. And both of these guys were last seen with this one cop who first lied about it. And then when he got caught by his own superiors lying about it, um, gave the same damn near story in both cases. Like, I dropped him off at Circle K. And then the second one, oh, I dropped him off at Circle K, just a different one. And it's like everything that you can hear about this case, but you got no evidence, you got no bodies, you got nothing. And this guy's still free. He got fired as a deputy in Naples, and now I think he's hiding because they tried to sue him for a wrongful death lawsuit, but the family's lost because you can't really prove these guys are dead. But in reality, it's like we know they're dead. You might want to look him up too. They got a whole podcast about this guy. Um, he's basically hiding in Utah now. I think he's like a farmer or rancher or some crap like that. But they're still fighting to figure out enough in this case because everybody that knows this guy is like, he's the nicest guy in the world. He would never do that. Blah 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 blah. But everything you hear about the case, that's all true and all that. There's no way you can't say that this guy's not it. Didn't do it. So, but it's like connecting that to the other part. It's like the only thing they can 100% say, the last person that's seen the victims alive was that deputy. That's all they got. They never, the victims never appeared in court. They never were taken into custody and dropped off at the sheriff's department. That never occurred. Oddly enough, a couple years after the case became more well known, Medea, Tyler Perry, flew all the way down here and did a press conference where he literally, I think the reward at that time was about 20,000 tops, 25 maybe. But he did a press conference where he upped the ante on it and offered $200,000+ of his own money for any information on the missing two men. And when you got two guys that are missing by the same circumstances and somebody willing to lie about it, and it's the same person in all of these instances, there's the possibility that you can find out there's more than two. But normally I would probably have more information in more cases. And I'm trying to think. I think the guy's name was Steve Mullins, or no, he sounded similar to one of the cops in the Delphi murder, um, name wise, but it's just like I'm not remembering it right off the way. But I know there's a bunch of single murders that are very. Then we get the cash money themed murders of a guy and his little brother that happened in Cape Coral too. Where this gang, I guess, a little bit of money was owed, so they tortured and murdered the teenage boy and his damn near like 11-year-old brother or whatever, and left him in a pretty messed up way. And there were five to seven of them that were convicted. Girls, guys, the whole nine yards. I already said Lord to Chaos. Samuel Little, I already said him. Oh, trying to think. Because if you go, this is just this 3-county area, mind you. So, yeah, I'd say about 180 square miles. You have all these murders all over the fucking, pardon my French, but all over the damn place. You have all these insane murders that are just all over court TV and everything else. And you got, which is weird because Google only tells you that Florida has a confirmed amount of like 9 serial killers. And I'm like, that's BS because just in these 3 counties alone that are around me, I got at least 7 of them. So you're telling me in Miami and Orlando and Tampa and Jacksonville, you're only going to find 2 more? Like, I'm not buying it. I'm not buying it at all. Honestly, Florida might just be up with California, Texas, and New York. Probably has the most serial killers. It's just there's so many serial murders that's not even reported as serial murders, so most people never even hear about them. I mean, but they're already calling Wade Wilson a serial killer, but he killed 2. Well, technically, he might be a serial killer, actually, but he only killed 2 people in the same night. So, technically, but he was connected to a murder 3 years prior of a man that was a hit. So, yeah, that's one a little bit up in the air still. But yeah, there was a gentleman that Wade Wilson was the prime suspect for quite a while, and where it turned out the guy's wife paid to have him killed while he was duck fishing, and they made it look like he drowned basically. But the cops figured it out. Wade Wilson was involved in that because they came to him first, is apparently what the story is. But honestly, I don't believe in coincidences too much, whether it be Delphi or anything else. So I kind of believe that, yeah, Wade Wilson was probably involved somehow in that first murder just the same. Which then, yeah, he'd be a serial killer. This place is just bad. This stupid link's in the way. I can't read it. Oh, yeah. Peter Gore or Frank Gore or something. No, Frank Gore's a football player. He was awesome. I think it was like Peter Gore or some crap like that. But the pair was like almost like the Speed freak killers in a way that they were. I think they were attacking single female victims using drugs or something like that as a ruse to get them to hang out with them or something like that at bars or something. And I think they murdered them that way. Right. Um, and you would think that, and honestly, I can get why people think that kind of stuff, but the ones I met, I mean, I don't know. Paul Klein himself was really nice, but I do believe at the time he was on his medication. Keeps posting halfway made messages. No problem. I mess up all the time. People always joke around with me like, Charles, you need to go to bed. Your type is getting all messed up. And I'm like, oh God, shut up. I have fat thumbs and I haven't cut my nails and I'm playing on a stupid phone. If I wasn't on a laptop, it'd be fine. But yeah, Paul Klein was really nice, honestly. He was really shy, really quiet, and he had weird arms. And I know it's mean, but I gotta understand. I was like 9 years old, so I didn't know because he had arms like they nicknamed him Popeye in high school. Because my stepdad was a Norfolk Myers class of 1981, and that same year was a professional baseball player named Mike Greenwell. Which, unless you like baseball, you're not gonna know who that is, unless you're from here. And in that same class, 81, was Deion Sanders. And everybody knows who Deion Sanders is. Do I need to even explain who Deion Sanders is? Prime time? Come on. We all know who that is. He finds a way to stay in the news. I met the dude. He's actually pretty awesome. I love Deion Sanders to death. I met him at a funeral for the athletic director of the Norfolk Myers High School. Apparently, she got him into sports and stuff. And he was so, oh man, for as much as a person that's going to get attention no matter where he goes. He was the nicest fucking genuine dude I've ever met in my life. That was like that. He was just so cool about it. Like he paid no attention to the 50 cameras trying to get him footage on him and all that stuff, and he's sitting there just having a conversation with me for like 40 minutes. And both of them were class of '81 at the same high school that I ended up being class of 2000 in. And Paul Klein, I'm not sure if he graduated or not, but was supposed to also be class of '81 at the same high school as my stepdad. And he's in the yearbook and all that, which I'm dying to get my hands on because it's got Dion in there, it's got Mike Greenwell in there, it's got the serial killer in there, and it's got my stepdad. I'm like, you gotta get, come on, man, you gotta let me see it. I just want to make copies. Come on, dude. But this dude, you know what Popeye the cartoon, right? When Popeye eats his can of spinach and junk, how it goes up from his hands and it goes through his body, and it's like his body changes like this weird shapes and shit, and then it comes right back out through his hands and all that, and then his arms like fire off like guns or some crap almost. And they're ready to go. And then there's like specifically a part of his arms, like the part above the wrist but below the elbow, is significantly larger than the part that's above the elbow to your shoulder when it comes to Popeye. That's why they called Paul Klein Popeye because he had some sort of deformity. And I've seen him, I met him. He's locked away in the mental institution, hopefully still. But he had really big ass freaking. I think their forearms. They were massive compared to the rest of his arm. Wow, it was weird because it was almost like I don't even know if you could do that while just working out, but it was just weird looking. And yeah, they bullied him, they called him pot by and everything else. I'm not sure if that probably had something to do with what he ended up doing later on. But he killed his adopted parents. He killed a friend of theirs that was visiting. He beat them to death, literally. He killed and I'm not. Did he beat his best friend to death too? I know he killed the best friend, but I'm not sure if he drowned him or he beat him. But basically, they couldn't find the bodies without him. There's a documentary of the New Detectives that also covers Paul Klein. That's what I'm downloading at the moment. And I got to cut that in half and use the first half. Now you can easily find older documentaries that are about the Hog Trail killer. Like I said, he killed my cousin. He's also the main and only suspect in the Fort Myers 8, which are still all unsolved, and the other 17 to 20 more that only one conviction's been figured out of, and they've been using genetic genealogy to identify the rest of the victims. Half of the Fort Myers 8 have been identified, and about half of the other 18 or so have been identified. But they're all matching that range of early to mid 90s, and they all had transient, high risk, lifestyles and stuff. Um, yeah, it just seems pretty damn well obvious that how the bodies were left, where they were left, the fact that they were left around other victims. He was what they call like a nesting killer, because I'm going to say I think Bundy did it. Yeah. Bundy's one also a nesting killer. Basically, if you could, the victims when he actually took them away and took them somewhere and then dumped them, and he would come back later on and visit his crime, still do dirty things with the bodies and stuff, and then he would keep them like a general area around each other, and he would have these little areas that they basically in the FBI, I guess they call nests, and you would have clusters or cluster killers, what they call them. Of victims in one spot. So when they found the Fort Myers 8, you got a field about a wooded area about the size of a football field, maybe a football field and a half. And in that area, they found 8 skeletons in a matter of a day. And you would think that I would move by this point, because not only did I meet that guy, the guy tried to get me in the car, and I was a little kid. Then I got questioned as a suspect in the missing, soon to be discovered homicide of my cousin. As a child, I was interrogated by the major case squad in this county. Um, what else was it? Then I was brought back in 2007 as a possible witness, and I thought at first as a suspect again because they had just found the bodies. This all started in '96. I think August, September '96. I was about 15 years old, I think, and my parents thought it was a good idea to let the very smart, sophisticated detectives have a 8 hour long freaking conversation with their son. Yeah, with no lawyer and no adults present during the whole thing. And I'm just gonna say, I'm lucky. I was not, I've learned it really quickly, I guess, that they somehow suspected me of doing something. So I got defensive pretty quickly, but not on them, more in my head. But my responses still showed that I was aggravated by the way they were talking. They would use the read technique like you just seen a bad version of in Delphi with Holman and Liggett and the other guy. But these guys actually did it right. They kept their calm, very smart. Honestly, I still talk to the guys. I know that sounds weird. I mean, for people that kind of thought I murdered somebody, it is what it is. I was the last person that saw him alive. That wasn't the killer, so I get it. And I wanted somebody to go to jail, or actually, I wanted him to be executed, which is I don't even think I got around to it. But I did get some information the other day sent directly to me from the state prosecutor and stuff, or the county prosecutor, that it does appear that they're not going to let him just die in prison, and they seem to be about to give him his the final date, for your execution. And this was, like I said, 1996. That's when he was convicted, and now it's 2025. So, about 30 years. That's how long it takes you to get executed in Florida. And honestly, they already asked me if I wanted to attend, and I'm just like, you know what? Yeah, I think I will. If they actually going to do it, yeah, I think I want to see that. I want to watch him die. I want him to see my face right before he goes and realize that he didn't get away with any of this. Hmm. Oh, I wasn't worried too much about it. YouTube's always messing up somehow. If it ain't YouTube, it's StreamYard or something like that. But yeah, anytime you need, have any questions about any kind of Florida murders, you'd be amazed. Half the time, it's like the information's in my brain. I'm not like right now. I can sit there and tell you all these facts and all that about all the cases that I've already talked about so far, and I'm not using notes. I'm not using any. I have photographic memory, and most of the details are just right there in my brain. So you say the murder, no matter where it's from, if I know about it, like the one guy, shit, the prosecutors were talking about him in the case that it was Schofield in northern Florida almost, where they believe now that he didn't commit the murder of his wife because there was evidence found in her car that was linked to an actual known serial killer. Ooh, awkward. But the dude's been sitting in prison now for over almost 30 years or over 30 years. I can't remember. Levi Schofield, I think his name is. Yeah, if you don't know that case, you might want to check it out because it's like she was found in in a ditch full of water, a big ass canal actually. Her car was found a couple miles down the road, broke down, and they found his DNA and I believe his fingerprints of a serial killer, which they didn't know at the time. So when they first got in, they of course suspected that her kind of abusive husband did it. So he got the conviction. They locked this dude up. I'm not sure about the Levi Schofield part, but I know that his last name is Schofield, Schofield, and it was later on when they decided to retest this information and the fingerprints and stuff that lo and behold, yeah, a serial killer that they didn't know. So that kind of gives you a reasonable doubt in my book, and I think he's still trying to get released. I think they finally, almost like the West Memphis 3, he's going through the last remaining things he has to do to get released, but he still has the crime itself hanging over his head. But once you factor in the whole thing about the serial killer, in my opinion, I don't know. I think that conviction should be fucking thrown out. That's just me, I guess. I have no idea. The husband could have still done it. He is still technically the most likely suspect in the murder, but she just got murdered by him, and then somehow her car ended up in the hands of a serial killer. Not so sure about that one. That just sounds like a coincidence. I'm not willing to make that jump for you, But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and let everybody go. I'll probably do something again tomorrow night or whatever. If I get those documentaries and all that downloaded, I'll at least start playing bits and parts or chunks or whatever. Of course, I got to use the fair use thing. I don't do this for money. I just try to get the victims' names and information out there, so maybe somehow somebody will see it that knows some bit of information that nobody else knows. But yeah, awesome. I appreciate you coming out here, Monster. It was nice. I mean, I could have just pushed the link out to a whole bunch of people, but honestly, yeah, I'm just not doing it maybe. But I still wanted to talk about stuff, so I do appreciate you came out here. And anybody happen to see this on replay? Meh, die in a fire. No, just kidding. All right, have a nice night, everybody, and anybody. And yeah, see you again soon. Thank you.